Hey, what is up guys? So I'm back and today I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. Now I should say before I start this video that all of this that is coming on in here has been appearing on Reddit and 4chan in the last couple of days. Now here is the thing, a lot of times what we've heard from many of the same people has turned out to be true. The entirety of Age of Ultron, Spider-Man's cameo, how extensive it was, some of the exact dialogue, and all of Amazing Spider-Man 2 and majority of Batman v Superman was actually correct from these people. So this could be a huge spoiler warning if you don't want to know everything about the actual, well, pretty much everything that happens in Spider-Man Homecoming. So I would suggest if you don't, you get out of here. So apparently the movie is going to open up with a bunch of bank robbers on a heist. Now these people are kind of going around, you know, they're really trying to cause as much damage as possible, hurting people and everything. And Spider-Man shows up and takes down a bunch of the thugs besides one of the final robbers who was left standing. Now he ends up taking a person hostage and he's pretty much, listen, I'm going to blow this person's head off if you don't back the hell away and get out of here and let me get away with this. Well, Spidey just kind of stands there and he ends up like taking the spider signal that we saw and flashes it on the dude and says, listen, you know, if you keep standing right there, if you don't drop this, I'm going to summon the giant spider to get you. So the thug ends up surrendering, and Peter ends up collecting a few pictures around the scene to be able to turn into the Daily Bugle after he's done school. Now, apparently during the next scene, we see that the police are collecting, you know, evidence, talking to the witnesses and getting statements. And one woman kind of mentions that she thinks that this was the Daredevil that saved them, and she's actually corrected by another guy who explains that no, this was the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that Spidey is pretty much loved by the people who he's been saving, like he's not a menace. And this is when the Spider-Man Homecoming title card would appear. So next up, we get to school and we see that the superhero life, of course, has taken a toll on Peter as he arrives late and he has actually missed a test he is unable to retake. Now, in school, he is invisible to everybody. No one pays attention to him besides this one kid called Harry. And the students pretty much all think he's a loser, except there is one girl called Liz Allen who is dating Flash Thompson, and she seems to have an interest in Peter. So we see that Flash is constantly trying to get Peter to actually do something, to make a move so he could pretty much, you know, beat his ass down, and Peter, being a better person, never gets into this. Now, next up, we actually have Harry, who is trying to get Peter to join the Homecoming Dance Committee that him and Liz Allen are actually a part of, but Peter keeps turning this down, explaining that, you know, he has enough on his palette with school and trying to do work and pretty much doing everything he can, and of course being a superhero. Now, after school, we see Peter as he goes to J. Jonah Jameson to try to turn in the photos, and he ends up getting underpaid by J. Jonah Jameson because the pictures were delivered late as the robbery was in the morning. Now, he does have the only picture available, but this is J. Jonah Jameson, and, you know, he's like trying to lowball him, of course. Now, what's interesting here is they say, you know, that all the cameras pretty much were taken out by the robbers, so it seems to be that the only source of photography for Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Now at this point, we actually have J. Jonah Jameson who accuses Spider-Man of working with the criminals, and he does this because he reveals that one of the criminals got away, and his name was Herman Schultz. You see the reference there? Now, when Peter gets home, he's greeted by an angry Aunt May who has received a call from Peter's school because he is constantly late showing up to class. Now, at this point, Peter kind of ends up looking a little sad and he hands over all the money he has that he made from the pictures, and she kind of ends up going easy on him, realizing that he's doing this because of the loss of Uncle Ben, and he's really feels bad that, you know, Uncle Ben obviously died at his, you know, like responsibility. And not only that, it's because of Uncle Ben's death that they lost the house, so they have to live in this small-time apartment. And because of how old Peter Parker is and the city he's living in, he's really unable to find any other work. Now, May keeps bugging him to try to set up a date with a friend and like a friend's niece, but Peter keeps turning it down as he cannot take another thing on the side. Like, he doesn't have time between using schoolwork, being a superhero, and all that. He just doesn't have time to go on any sort of dates. And now we are going to switch over to Norman Osborn in Oscorp, who has absolutely exploded in productivity and becoming one of the top, world most recognized brands. And this happened because of the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D., as he went on to hire many of the science and use a bunch of the resources that S.H.I.E.L.D. had. And this has quickly become one of the fastest growing enterprises, and perhaps even the fastest of all time. Osborn is now a direct rival to Stark Industries, and within the next decade they're saying that he is going to be the top, like no one else is going to be on there. Now, it's also mentioned that many of the world's top scientists actually work for Oscorp, from Adrian Toomes to Otto Octavius. Now, Adrian Toomes is going to be the main villain of the movie, and he lives alone with his daughter, and he's gotten the nickname the Vulture for making a career out of refurbishing old scientific advancements in fresh, new, innovative ways. Now, his next venture is actually inspired by the exosuits that are worn by Iron Man, War Machine, and Falcon, specifically the Falcons, but he's unable to recreate the battery/arc reactor powerful enough to run the suits. So what he has done is actually use the person's vitals to be able to power the suit for a short while. Now, at this point, Norman Osborn wants to do human trials, and Toomes keeps arguing that this is illegal, it's unethical, the suit's not ready, and prolonged exposure can lead to fatal side effects that aren't exactly all known because no one's really willing to try it, and neither is he. But if it is used, because it is using the, your body, it's like he's saying, listen, this is going to cause like rapid aging almost to you. Like, it's going to seriously damage you, and I really don't want to do it. But he's kind of like, well, human subjects also, they aged rapidly when we were doing this, so we don't really know, but I could probably fix it. So at this point, Toomes actually finds out that Osborn ran tests behind his back, and these two kind of get into a, like a little debate here about what is going to be happening here. Now, Osborn actually ends up framing Toomes, and, this scandal goes public to kind of, discredit everything he's done. So after this, Toomes gets very vengeful, and he ends up deciding he by himself is going to break into Oscorp and destroy his exosuit so Norman cannot use this to, propel his company into the next generation, because it'd be doing the work that he put into it that he's not going to get any credit for. Now, when he gets in there, he gets cornered, and he decides to toss the exosuit onto himself, which of course, obviously is going to already start the aging process. Now, after this, he ends up escaping and returns to his daughter, and they pretty much all start getting on here. They know where he's going, and she refuses to leave with him as he is a criminal. So he escapes alone and finds an abandoned warehouse, where this is going to become his new base of operations. Now, he decides he doesn't necessarily want to just take out Osborn, as he's already been framed as this madman who is just going to become a murderer. So what he decides to do is just kind of lay low. Unfortunately, the side effects of wearing the suit and the acceleration of the aging is already starting to show. Now, Adrian's plan is going to become to break back into Oscorp, steal all the technology and research and the papers he had on it to try to reverse these side effects. And he actually figures out how to reverse the suit. So instead of feeding off his own life force, he can actually turn against others. So when he grabs them, and he can suck out their life force and leave them pretty much a dry carcass. He first starts doing it on small rodents and animals, believing that this will keep him, but unfortunately those don't sustain enough life force to be able to keep him alive. So back in school, we see that Peter is still being bullied, and Flash Thompson kind of gets jealous that Liz is flirting with Peter. So he goes and he tries to pick up a fight with Peter, and he's successful when he punches him in the face really hard. Now, Peter's playing this off as it didn't really hurt that bad, but he's like, okay, so I gotta play this off as it did hurt, because obviously I can't reveal my strength. And obviously we've seen him get punched by Captain America, so clearly he can take a punch. But Flash Thompson is trying to play it cool by acting like, no, his hand isn't really hurting, since obviously it would be. So at that point, Liz Allen actually starts to show disinterest and ends up breaking up with Flash and showing way more interest into Peter. But Peter has no idea how to handle this, as he's never had interest from a girl directly pointed at him. So next up we see Harry Osborn, and he's trying to convince Peter to make the move, as they just broke up, and if Peter reveals to him he's actually had a crush on her, but he's just never been able to do anything. So Harry's like, listen, just keep doing it and all that. And while this is happening, they actually end up seeing on the TV that yes, Toomes is attacking Oscorp. Harry is freaking out because his father might be there, he might need help. So Peter ends up coming up with an excuse to get the hell out of there and go try and stop Toomes. So Peter arrives, and him and Vulture start duking it out, flying high. He's really tossing Peter around and everything, and the two get into a pretty good fight. Now Peter, obviously trying to figure out how to stop him, and he's smart. He goes after the wings, but the wings and engine is really well protected. So the next thing he does is ends up going for the life support system, but he obviously doesn't understand that this is what's keeping him alive, and as he damages it, Vulture decides to start taking off, but now it's so damaged that it's draining life quicker, so Vulture actually has to start using normal people, to maintain himself alive a lot quicker than he had to before. So escaping with all of those files, Oscorp's, private database Toomes learns that Norman has actually been developing something called Oz. Now with this, he believes that the Oz serum can in fact be used to stop the acceleration and cure all of the side effects of the exoskeleton suit that he's wearing. He believes that Norman was developing this with his research on the side, but also there's never been any human test subjects done. They've only been done on animals. So he figures, I can do this, and then if I get it working, I'll stop draining humans. So getting back to his best friend Harry, Harry is visibly upset that he abandoned him when he was worried about his father. But Peter decides to make it up to him by joining the homecoming dance committee. And, Liz Allen is pretty excited, but of course Flash is disappointment, and rightfully so, but he's, kind of trying to throw some of the blame and stuff everywhere, and he misses a lot, he misses Liz a lot, so he's showing some of his more human side. So at this point, once he's joined, we actually see that the homecoming dance committee has decided that they want the school dance to be Avengers themed. Now the faculty thinks that this is a terrible idea because of all the controversy surrounding the Avengers currently, but they are outnumbered by all the students, so they decide to do that anyway. Now Peter is always late to these meetings because of being Spider-Man and the Bugle and everything like that, but he's finally convinced by Harry to ask Liz out, and he does, and he says, well, let's go to the Oscorp Science Fair, and she's kind of wary of it, but he's like, whoa. Listen, there's a ton of activities there. It's like a carnival and everything, it's gonna be fun, I promise, so they do start dating. So next up, we go over to the actual carnival, where we see that Valeria, who is Toomes' daughter, is there, and she's, obviously part of the carnival. She's just kind of enjoying herself. Toomes goes incognito. He's like, listen, I have tons of money and wealth. I just want you to come with me. We can leave this. We'll be fine. But she ends up turning on her father. She wants nothing to do with him. And this is at the point where he's been balancing all this, and he's kind of going crazy, and the side effects, and he just ends up vowing revenge right now. He's done, fed up with Oscorp. He's going to expose him. He's going to stop him. Everything is done. And he starts to begin attacking everybody at the carnival. And he just wants to find Osborn now. Now, obviously, Spider-Man is there, so he's forced to abandon his date and try to look like a coward while he shows up as Spider-Man. Now we actually see that Oscorp is kind of, just being run down and everything. Everybody's running out of there, and Toomes actually finds Osborn, and he confronts him about the Oz formula and how it's been tested on various animals but never given proper human trials, and why is this? And he's kind of like, well, it never really worked, but the two get into a heated conversation about being monsters and stuff, and Osborn's like, listen, you're the monster. You chose to do this. You put on the suit. You have become the monster, and you did it to yourself. Now, Spidey kind of swings in here and they continue fighting, and he tries to go for the life support again, but this time Toomes has actually protected it the right way, and his talons are actually used, and he actually drains Peter of energy. Now, he doesn't age Peter at all, but he really gets a giant boost of energy because he is a superhuman. So Peter's left kind of very vulnerable and very weak. So right after that, Peter Parker is very weakened and he's trying to get home, and Tony Stark shows up and he decides, I'm gonna take you home and everything like that. And while going, Stark reveals that he doesn't trust Norman Osborn. He doesn't trust him at all. And it isn't just because he's the lead rival company who's quickly gaining on Stark Industries. But he says, I can't directly help you with this. I have the Accords. They're watching over me. They're never gonna agree, with me helping you right now, as there's bigger things out there. But I can indirectly help you, Peter. And he asks for the the schematics, the Iron Man and the Falcon suit. Now, on this way, they still keep talking, and he's like, listen, I don't think you're going to understand this. So he brings it up on a hollow thing, and Peter seems to have the ability to actually grasp this technology, which kind of, once again, amazes Tony Stark as to how smart this kid is. So they figure out they are going to make an anti-magnetic device to actually be able to stop Toomes from killing people. Now, he also ends up talking to Stark about all the really big things in life, being a teenager and everything like that. And he decides to tell him a little bit of advice regarding women. Now, I don't know who Tony Stark is to advise anybody about women, but I think it's pretty funny. And when Peter asks him about what he looks for in a woman, Tony says he prefers redheads. And Peter says, it's a shame he doesn't know any. Obviously a nod towards Aunt May trying to set up that relationship with an unknown person. So after this weekend is over at the carnival and everything, Peter shows up back in school, and he's kind of insulted by Flash because he's like, oh, you're a fool, you left this girl here all alone, you ran off like you're scared and everything. And he's really trying to show up, and Peter just has enough of this and just fine, I'm gonna ask her out. And yeah, she says yes to the homecoming dance, so Flash is just left there looking like a fool. So later on, when it is time for the homecoming dance, we actually see that right before it, Peter gets a Stark package, and inside of it just happens to be the inverter that he was helping him with. And at the dance, we actually see that, just as expected, that the Vulture actually does end up showing up, but luckily Peter has the device on him. So while this fight is happening, Toomes actually realizes what Peter is using the device for, and it ends up getting destroyed. Now, Peter this entire time is trying to take the battle away from the school, as he doesn't want collateral damage to be happening. He doesn't want any destruction or anybody to get hurt. Toomes actually realizes this, and he tries to take the battle back into where obviously it would be going back, which is in the dance. So Toomes actually attacks the giant gymnasium, causing the roof to collapse. Now, while this is happening, Peter uses his weapon and everything. He actually stops it from happening, so everybody is safe. And he actually tries to get Liz Allen and Flash Thompson back together, as he realizes he's really not going to have time, as Peter Parker once again looks like a weakling that ran away. Now, next up, Spidey goes over to Oscorp to meet Norman, who's received a message from Toomes to go to his abandoned warehouse and to go specifically alone. Now, Norman follows the orders, and Spider-Man is obviously behind, so they're kind of trying to do this thing where they are going to stop him. And during this, we see that Toomes is showing Harry all of the illegal experiments that Norman has been responsible for, that he's been doing. And Harry is pretty much shocked by this, and shocked by what his father has done. Until his father, tries to show up there, and he twists the facts, saying, no, everything I did was for the good, it's for the betterment of humanity, it's for you and me, and it's for your mother and the memory of her and everything like that. Obviously trying to win his son's sympathy back. So as this is all happening, Harry actually ends up forgiving his father, and Vulture's plan now falls apart, and as he didn't set family, against each other much like it was done to him and his daughter. So Spider-Man leaps in, the two start fighting, and they fight all across the New York skyline. We see them actually take it through the skies, through the streets, they even swing by the Avengers Tower and everything like that, and the battle ends in Oscorp, where we actually see Toomes get caught in the giant, inverter, but it's amplified between a couple buildings, and we actually see him kind of get caught up like like something in a spider's web. Now, at the end of the movie, we see that Liz actually does end up getting together with Flash, but Flash kind of dislikes, because of the love everybody has for Spider-Man now. Osborn goes on and destroys all of the evidence that could ruin his name, and Toomes is visited in jail by Osborn, who keeps telling him, it's only a matter of time before everything you've done, everything you do is out in the public. Now, back in school, Peter learns that Midtown High is holding a second homecoming dance thanks to a random donation from an anonymous benefactor. Peter wants nothing to do with this one, as he's fed up with it. He doesn't have Liz or anybody, and he's just not going to do it. At this point, Aunt May says that's not an option because she's already arranged a date for him, and someone's waiting right there at the door, and it turns out that it is in fact Mary Jane. Now, at this point, Peter is kind of freaking out, and to make matters worse, Aunt May reveals that Tony Stark stopped by to drop off a new suit. Now, this is when Peter starts freaking out even more, but it just turns out that this is a suit for the homecoming dance. As the two roll up into the school, we actually see them, we follow them, they go to the new homecoming dance, and as they walk through, it's not Avengers themed anymore, it is the Spider-Man homecoming dance dedicated to their savior, and that's the end of the movie. So honestly, if this turns out to be true, pretty awesome. I can definitely see a very good structure here. A lot of things that harken back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that kind of tie the same themes and everything. And I definitely like the way that Tony Stark is used in this. Obviously, he would not be able to just go and be a superhero and fly around in a suit and try to stop, someone, but he can indirectly help. So I think a lot of this makes sense, and honestly, it's pretty damn awesome, so I wouldn't be disappointed by this. If you guys listened to and watched all this, let me know your thoughts down below. Hey guys, Armin here, just reminding you that this video was made possible thanks to patrons. If you guys are interested in supporting us and making sure we keep the lights on, check out our Patreon where you can join other fans in supporting the CBC delivering content you guys have come to love and expect. And if you can't do that, give us a like and a subscribe. That goes a long way too.